Have you ever thought about this? The government orders you to show up in court, but then it also takes away the one document you need to get there. Sounds like a paradox, right? Well, today we're diving deep into a fascinating legal case that deals with exactly that. We're going to break down Yogesh Raheja versus the Union of India to figure out the precise limits on the government's power to impound your passport. All right, so here's our game plan. We'll start with the crazy catch-22 the petitioner was facing. Then we'll walk through the timeline of the case, zero in on the one regulation that changed everything, see how the court put it all together, and finally talk about the verdict and why this whole thing matters to every single one of us. So, first things first, let's get to the heart of the conflict. This whole case is about one person, Mr. Yogesh Raheja, who got caught in a totally impossible situation created by the government itself. I mean, really think about this question for a second. It's the absolute core of the case. You're legally required to do something, but you're also being legally prevented from doing it. It is the perfect definition of a catch-22. So here's the basic setup. Mr. Raheja is in Canada. He gets a summons to appear before a court back in India. Simple enough, right? Wrong. The problem was, the regional passport office had already taken away his passport. This literally stranded him abroad, making it completely impossible for him to obey the court's order. A total legal gridlock. Okay, let's dig into the timeline. Now, in a case like this, the sequence of events is absolutely everything. The details here are so critical to understanding how the court eventually made its decision. All right, follow these dates closely, because this is where it gets good. An FIR is filed against Mr. Raheja way back in 2018. Fast forward to 2024, he applies to renew his passport. Now here's the kicker. On January 17, 2025, his passport gets impounded. But get this, it isn't until 3 weeks later, on February 7th, that a court actually takes cognizance of the case. You gotta remember that sequence. They impound his passport first, and then the court gets formally involved. That little detail is the entire foundation of his argument. So you might be asking, how could he even challenge the timing of all this? Well, his argument wasn't just about what felt unfair. It was built on the government's very own specific written rules. The key piece of evidence, the smoking gun, if you will, was an office memorandum in OM from the Ministry of External Affairs. This is basically the official playbook that lays out the rules for handling passports when someone's involved in a criminal case. And this is where the whole case just turns on its head. The government's own rule, right here, is unbelievably precise. It says just filing an FIR or having an investigation is not enough. For a case to be officially pending, a court has to have taken cognizance. So what in the world is cognizance? It's a very specific legal move. It's not the police filing a report. It's not an investigation starting. Cognizance is that exact moment when a judge formally looks at the case and says, yep, there's enough here to move forward. It's the official starting bell for the judicial process, totally separate from the investigation part. So you see what's happening. The court had the timeline of events on one hand and the government's own rulebook on the other. Its job was to just lay them side by side, and the analysis was, well, pretty straightforward, but incredibly powerful. And this slide just nails it. Look at the left. On the day they impounded his passport, all that existed was an FIR and investigation. The court hadn't stepped in yet. Now look at the right. The law clearly says the court must have taken cognizance. The facts on the ground just didn't meet the legal requirement. It's a total mismatch. The passport office, simply put, jumped the gun. But the court didn't just stop at calling out a procedural mistake. It connected this whole thing directly to the Constitution of India. This quote is so important because it reminds us that having a passport isn't just a small privilege. It's a core part of your fundamental right to personal liberty. And any restriction on that right has to be, completely by the book. So, after all that, where did the chips fall? What was the final verdict? And what are the big lessons we should all be taking away from this? Well, the verdict was about as clear as it gets. The High Court threw out the order to impound the passport, calling it legally unsustainable. Bottom line, Mr. Raheja won his case. So, this whole judgment leaves us with 4 really crucial takeaways. First, an FIR by itself is not enough to take away your passport. Second, the word pending has a very specific legal meaning. A court must be involved. Third, the right to travel is a big deal. It's a constitutional right. And finally, and this one's huge, government agencies have to play by their own rules. At the end of the day, this case is so much bigger than one person's travel documents. It's a powerful reminder of how important clear rules and an independent judiciary are for keeping state power in check. And it leaves us with a pretty big question to think about. How do we make sure these kinds of checks and balances stay strong enough to protect our most basic freedoms?